Welcome to your cruise tour presentation. I was talking with Kelley Winner, your strategic account manager, a few weeks ago. She was excited with her partnerships and felt there was opportunity, particularly in Alaska, to grow those partnerships. And the singularly most impactful way to grow Alaska revenue is with Alaska Cruise Tours. And that's what we're going to talk about today. My name is Brendan, and I oversee our Royal Caribbean Alaska Cruise Tours. I spent 11 years working on cruise ships, and if I took all the contracts I spent in Alaska and lined them up next to each other, I'd have spent 3 years in Alaska, and I loved it. Every single time, every single contract, Alaska was always a destination I was excited to return to. The last 2 years I've spent working with our partnerships in the interior of Alaska for our cruise tours, and I sincerely believe if the value can be messaged to your clients and they book a Royal Alaska cruise tour, they will have an amazing experience. But how to message it? In our 20 minutes together, that's what I've been asked to focus on. How to upsell from Alaska Cruise Only into Cruise Tour. And number two, the Royal difference. What makes us Royal unique in the cruise tour industry? Our hope is from today that if you haven't already, you buy into the idea that cruise tours can be good for your business, that you understand Royal's unique and industry-leading offering and appreciate that to engage with cruise tours isn't as complicated as it might initially seem. But before we begin, it's important to cover the three resources that are crucial for you to successfully sell cruise tours. Everything that is fundamentally important to the cruise tour message, the trains, the lodges, the local tour guides, the daily details, are expanded upon in these three resources. And in the brochure and trade website, they're communicated compellingly. Messaging that are offering is something that is above the industry standard. We call that the Royal difference. And I labor on this point a little because I encourage you to let these resources do the heavy lifting as you engage with your clients. Let these be the workhorses. Hit the key points and utilize the resources. Excite your consumers on truly seeing Alaska and utilize the brochure. And I say that because we embrace the cruise tours as one of many products that you offer. And we make these resources available to allow you to engage with cruise tours impactfully and profitably. The Alaska Cruise Tours brochure is a 50-page full brochure dedicated to cruise tours, and it follows the narrative of a cruise tour sale. Why a cruise tour over a cruise? Why us? The Royal difference. And then what's in a cruise tour? The destinations, included experiences, daily details, which are the pages that describe the day-to-day of the cruise tour. Now, currently, they're not available to order as we're working on 2018. However, 2017 can be downloaded from the following website. This is your number one resource to educate your clients about cruise tours. The Trade Focus website works as a companion piece to the brochure, but expands upon it greatly. Our aim here was to give our travel partners all of the tools they need to sell cruise tours. Now, in addition to the Royal difference, we speak to Harbor Glacier, destinations, accommodations. We built a resources section, which amongst other content is where the brochure is available to be downloaded. We always align cruise tours with our brand offer that is applicable to Alaska, and that can be seen under the promotion section where you'll also see flyers updated every month with pricing that is ready for you to send to your clients. This is especially important if your organization does not use Espresso and uses an internal booking system that pulls pricing and content from Royal. The pricing is good, the cruise tour content is limited. This trade website bridges that gap. And then finally, we have our trade partner advocate dedicated cruise tour phone number of 888-307-8401. You can call this number for an informed partner advocate who can book cruise tours, update bookings, or provide needed information. And we provide all of these additional assets for a reason, which is that the opportunity for a meaningful incremental Alaska Cruise Tour commission comes not from your clients who inquire about cruise tours, it's within the interest that your clients have for Alaska Cruise Only or Alaska more broadly. That's where the real opportunity lies, in upselling from Alaska Cruise Only into Alaska Cruise Tour. And that is why these very specific resources exist, to allow you to impactfully bridge the conversation from Alaska Cruise Only into Alaska Cruise Tour. So 2018 will see Royal Caribbean expand our commitment to delivering unique and exceptional experiences in the Alaskan interior. And I'd like to ask you to focus on the words local and boutique. A few years ago, we took a step back and we asked ourselves the question, can we do this differently? Can we raise our offering above the industry standard? And that's where we are today. That's what we call the Royal Difference. That's what delivers exceptional experiences for your clients. And I'll be getting into that. Now, this on the right-hand side is the spectacular coastline of Alaska, and as part of a 7-night sailing that's combined with a 2 to 6 night land tour into the interior of Alaska to create those 9 to 13 night all-encompassing cruise tour experiences. Now, your clients can either sail north with a land tour after, then flying home from Anchorage or Fairbanks, or they can fly into Anchorage or Fairbanks, go down to Seward, and then sail southbound, flying home from Vancouver. And all of our cruise tours, name and numbers end with either an A or a B to signify if the land portion is A after or B before the cruise. So why sell cruise tours? Well, of course, because it's an exceptional experience for your clients, and we'll talk about that, but also because it's a fabulous commission generator. Cruise tours are a true bundled product. There's no opportunity to add the tour portion onto the cruise at a later date. It must be booked at prevailing rate. And because it's a true bundled product, it's commissionable as a bundled product. And the commissions are based off of ticket revenues that are typically around double that of Alaska Cruise only. But for meaningful, incremental Alaska Cruise Tour commission, it requires that 3 points are top of mind every time your clients reach out about Alaska. And that's that a cruise tour combining the southeastern coastline of Alaska with an inland tour of Alaska is a recommendation I should be making. That the cruise tours that Royal offers are exceptional, and there is significant earning potential from selling an Alaska cruise tour via an Alaska cruise only. But to bridge that conversation from cruise only to cruise tour, that value has to be framed. I spent 6 years managing future cruise sales programs on board cruise ships. I sold a lot of Alaska cruises, a lot of Alaska cruise tours. And the unspoken agenda is what I came to call the reasons that people wanted to go to Alaska, the reasons your clients reach out about Alaska, but those reasons needed help verbalizing. Because the panacea of media that exists about Alaska is varied. It could be those awful reality TV shows on gold mining in Fairbanks. It could be the funky, wonderful TV show from the 90s, Northern Exposure, that's based on funky, wonderful Talkeetna. It could be a National Geographic article or book on Alaska, but those panacea of media is really predicated on 4 pillars, which is the wilderness, and they may be talking about the Chugach mountain ranges or the Seven Hanging Glaciers or the Kenai Peninsula or Denali National Park. But when your clients talk about wanting to experience wilderness, what they're really talking is about that sense of separation, of being removed from the hustle and bustle of everyday life, of being surrounded by the magnificence of nature. They may say they want to experience wildlife. And of course, there's a lot of wildlife by both land and sea in Alaska. But anytime a client is referring to Alaskan wildlife, what they're really talking about is the big five, which is the moose, the caribou, the grizzlies, the Dall sheep, and the wolves. They may say they want to experience the mountain. And there are many mountain and mountain ranges in Alaska. But anytime anyone is referring to the mountain, they're, of course, referring to Denali, which is formerly Mount McKinley, which is the tallest peak in North America at 20,000 feet. And when the clouds rise, it really is a magnificent sight. And they may be talking about scenic areas of cruising. And of course, they're referring to those glacial scenic areas of cruising like Glacier Bay or Tracy-on Fjord or the magnificent, dramatic Hubbard Glacier. And it's an opportunity as they verbalize these reasons to talk about the idea that they may not experience Alaska in the way they truly want to experience it unless they go to the interior of Alaska, unless they combine both the cruise with a land tour for that cruise tour experience, because wilderness, of course, you can get out for a morning and an afternoon on a cruise, but a cruise port in Alaska is like a cruise port in many destinations around the world with multiple cruise ships and thousands of people, and you can get out for the afternoon, but are you truly going to experience wilderness, that sense of separation, of being surrounded by nature? Well, for that, you would need to go to the interior of Alaska. You would need to do a cruise tour. And to truly experience the wildlife, well, of course, there's opportunities on the Alaskan coastline. But to experience wildlife in their natural habitat, the best opportunity is Denali National Park with the 6 million acres of pristine and wild land in the tundra and taiga. And for that, they would need to go to the interior of Alaska. They would need to experience the cruise tour. And if they want to experience Denali, the tallest peak in North America, well, that's over 377 miles from any given cruise port in Alaska. For that, they would need to go to the interior of Alaska. They would need to do a cruise tour. Now, of course, those glacial scenic areas of cruising, they'll get as both the cruise experience or the cruise tour experience. But 3 out of those 4 reasons that drove them to have that conversation with you in the first place about Alaska, they're not going to experience in the best way they possibly can unless they do a cruise tour. Now, a huge component of this as well is the distances that are needed to travel to just do the Alaska cruise. Now, this isn't a traditional route in order to get to Seattle or Vancouver, but this is the way I feel when I fly from Miami to get to Seattle or Vancouver. It feels like I've gone via India and Iran and Sudan and Egypt and Libya and Chad. And why? Because to get to Seattle or Vancouver from Miami, that's 9 to 10 hours. That's an international flight. That's what it takes to get from Miami to London. From New York to London, that's 6 hours. That's what it takes to get from Central to get from Seattle or Vancouver. And it's an opportunity to say to your clients, would you truly fly from Miami to London and not experience Buckingham Palace? Of course you wouldn't. So why are you going to fly from Miami to Seattle or Vancouver and not experience the wildlife and their natural habitat? Would you truly fly from New York to London and not go to Big Ben? Of course you wouldn't. So why are you going to fly from Chicago to Seattle or Vancouver and not experience true wilderness? Speaking to that unspoken agenda, helping your clients verbalize why they wanted to go to Alaska will help you bridge that conversation from Alaska cruise only into Alaska cruise tour. I talked before about boutique and local as key communicators of who we are. We've been offering cruise tours for 15 plus years, and about 5 years ago, we took a step back and asked ourselves the question, are we delivering the best experience we possibly can? Can we elevate our offering to something that is above the industry standard? And that's where we are today. That's encompassed within the Royal difference. There's a lot that's the same in the interior of Alaska, and there's a lot that's different. And what's different about Royal from the industry standard is the lodges, their area, the service, and the transport. That's what delivers an exceptional experience on a Royal Caribbean cruise tour. The lodges that we partner with in the interior of Alaska can really be encompassed within one sentence, which is to say that we always use the finest lodges available, locally owned and operated where we can. But we'll never sacrifice using the finest available simply because it's locally owned and operated. A great example of that is Hotel Alyeska, which is the property that you're looking at right here. Hotel Alyeska is a fabulous luxury resort that sits at the base of Mount Alyeska in a town called Girdwood. It's got beautiful views of the lush valley from the heated saltwater swimming pools. At the top of Mount Alyeska is a 7-star diamond restaurant with the views of the Chugach mountain range that you're looking at right here. If you take the Fairmont Hotel properties in Canada out of the equation, this is the finest property between the North Pole and Seattle. And it's also owned by a gentleman from Vegas. Certainly not locally owned and operated, but the finest available, and that is why we partner with Hotel Alyeska. Now, in contrast is the Talkeetna Alaskan Lodge. You're looking at Talkeetna Alaskan Lodge right here, just 5 minutes away from the town of Talkeetna for those fabulous local, wonderful experiences. It's got those beautiful views of the Alaska mountain range from the back of the lodge. It's a fabulous property. We would certainly say the second finest property in the interior of Alaska, and it's run by the Athabascan and Yupik Corporation, very much a local property. And then the Denali Park Village is the property that we partner with in Denali. You're looking at Denali Park Village right here, set on the banks of the Nana River, rushing by, fire pits outside on a 20-acre private wooded area. It's a fabulous property to really enjoy that national park experience. Certainly, the biggest difference about a Royal Caribbean cruise tour is the fact that we are a fully escorted experience, but not just fully escorted. We're fully escorted by a local tour guide. We call them an adventure specialist, someone who grew up in Alaska, was born in Alaska, or lives in Alaska, but at least has that deep connection in Alaska. Let me compare and contrast for you. What the standard is in the interior of Alaska is what's called a repped experience. That means that your clients would fly into the interior of Alaska and they'd be met by a rep. And that rep would check their paperwork and tell them they're on cruise tour number 4. And they'd send them to their hotel room. And they'd come down in the morning, but that was the night rep. So this is the day rep. It's a new person who checks their paperwork and tells them they're on cruise tour number 4. And they go outside and there's a few hundred people with 12 different buses going in 9 different directions. And somebody checks their paperwork and they get on a bus and they go to their destination. And now there's a new rep. And there's a new checking of the paperwork and the whole process starts again. Let me compare and contrast that with you with a Royal Caribbean cruise tour. Your clients would fly into the interior of Alaska, they'd come to the hotel, and they'd be met by one person. And that is their local tour director, their local adventure specialist. And they would introduce them to their dedicated motor coach driver, and their dedicated motor coach driver would show them their dedicated motor coach, and that would be it for the duration of that small group tour experience. That's what a Royal Caribbean cruise tour is. I think everyone has had those experiences where they've gone to a city and kind of figured it out. They've talked to people, they've read guides. But I think everyone has been to a city where they've been introduced to that city by someone who comes from that city, someone who cares about that city, someone who loves that city. How different is that experience? That's the experience we want your clients to have on a Royal Caribbean cruise tour. And then finally, the transportation. We use the newest deluxe motor coaches on the roads of the interior of Alaska, a fabulous luxury experience traveling by deluxe motor coach on every single Royal Caribbean cruise tour. And here is, of course, the Wilderness Express rail carriages, a fabulous way to experience the interior of Alaska. Those domed glass roofs for the beautiful scenery, 80 persons up top, luxury leather seating. Down below, you're looking at the white linen, silver service, dining available, freshly prepared meals by a chef on the rail car that day with local ingredients. It's a fabulous way to experience the interior of Alaska. Every single Royal Caribbean cruise tour has a section on board the Wilderness Express rail. Some have multiple. And that covers it. The unspoken agenda and the Royal Caribbean difference. I hope it has given you some insight into Alaska, into our cruise tours. And I'll leave you with the 2 most important takeaways of this presentation. That a cruise tour combining the southeastern coastline of Alaska with an inland tour of Alaska is a recommendation you should be making. That the cruise tours that Royal offers are exceptional and there is significant earning potential from selling an Alaska cruise tour via an Alaska cruise only. And your top assets, the number 1 asset to educate your consumers is the Royal Cruise Tour brochure. The number 1 asset to educate yourself is RoyalCaribbeanCruiseTours.com, and the number 1 asset for support is the dedicated trade partner advocates available at 888-307-8401.